Welcome to Talking Business and Life with Claudio Reilsono and Steve Mancini. Claudio and Steve will share their business and life experience to help you grow your business and improve your life. Here's Claudio and Steve.
Good evening and welcome to Talking Business Live. I am your co-host, Steve Mancini.
And my name is Claudio Reilsono, and we appreciate all of you tuning in. Steve, what's going on?
Claudio, not much, but...
Which isn't true. We're busy working on some things.
And I know, it's like I want to go like, guess what we're doing? And like, we can't do it yet. But we got some exciting news, hopefully coming up soon. And we have some exciting guests. We've had some really good guests. I kind of missed you last time. Marta from Passione Italiana was on, and I am telling you, she is just an absolutely fantastic person, a wonderful international, probably one of the most sought after teachers of Italian from like primarily adult learners. And I mean, just a wonderful person. It was a wonderful interview, and it's always funny when you have someone that English isn't their first language, and they're like, oh, I'm a little nervous, I don't speak. I'm thinking, listen, I got to go to Italy and speak Italian. If you have an Italian with a Pittsburgh accent,
that's right, there you go.
And believe me, I'll take your English over my Italian any day of the week. But Claudia, how are you doing?
I'm good. Excited for this show. We have a great guest, and I know in a couple weeks we're going to have another good guest, Jim Rooker, former Pittsburgh Pirate World Series winner, former Pittsburgh Pirate announcer, ESPN announcer, business owner, and Jim has been a friend of mine since August 19th, 1973. I was 8 years old, and I'm going to bring
What happened in 1973, Claudio?
I'm going to bring in some stuff that he gave me through the years: jackets, bats, shoes. Jim's the best, so I'm excited to have him on.
Now, we also we would be remiss if we didn't mention a certain event that's coming up, because I do think it's a wonderful event. I think it's a wonderful award for you, and I'm hoping that folks on here will join us. So, Claudia, a little bit more about the Hall of Fame.
I appreciate that. I will be inducted into the National Italian American Sports Hall of Fame Pittsburgh chapter June 18th at the Station Square Sheraton, and this is something that since I found out I've been in. I'll be honest with you, I have not stopped thinking about it. It's been very important to me because my dad and my mom, when they first heard about it back in, I want to say, they brought it up, I think, in 86, 87. Dan Marino's father started it. And I'll never forget, my dad said, it'd be nice someday if you had a career worthy enough to be inducted in something like that. So thank God I have, and just very, very excited. I cannot wait. But so I'm not going to just enjoy the banquet. I'm enjoying the lead up to it.
That's the way
everything.
to do it. No,
yeah.
That's the way to do it. I mean, those moments, the night is one moment, but once it's over, you're there, you're done, and you don't want to say, I wish I would have done this. It's like when somebody wins, like for example, they win the Stanley Cup or they win the Super Bowl trophy. It's like, oh, you got to start preparing for next year. Yeah, I get that, but at the same time, you also kind of want to enjoy the moment because life is fleeting.
That's for sure.
And there's so many ups and downs in life. One of the kind of the premise of the shows, we're talking Italian Impact Weekly. Well, we are, and we're still proud to be Italian, but we're trying to, ultimately bring on guests that have more than just ethnicity. Our guest tonight, we're going to introduce her in a second. She's been on before, but what she does for the community, you talk about that business, that life, that impact that people have, that's what we're trying to do. So with the ups and downs of life, we always want to show people, listen, that's normal. But revel in the positive and don't worry because the negatives will pass.
Right.
But the problem is, so will the positives. Those good moments in life will pass. So will the bad moments. So you just got to enjoy each moment you're living in.
And I got to mention one more thing. And again, this is very true. When they were building the Heinz History Center, my dad pretty much said the same thing. Boy, it'd be nice if you had something in there. Well, our guest today gave me a huge, huge honor, which is right up there. And I mean this with all my heart because we've been there many times. And it was a very proud moment when I was able to show my daughter, my wife, or friends have gone and they've seen some items of mine at the Heinz History Center, and that's due to our guest today. She is the director for the Heinz History Center's Italian-American program, and she has done an unbelievable job there, and that's Melissa Marinaro. Melissa, thank you so much for taking time to be on the show and for including some of my items in your wonderful building.
Well, thank you, Claudio. Thank you, Steve. I'm so glad to be back on your program.
All right. Well, you know what? Let's start off. Tell us about some of your responsibilities at the Heinz History Center.
Sure. So, as you said, I oversee the Italian American program, and we have been a unit at the History Center since 1990. Our mission is to document the history and culture of the region's Italian Americans. And the way we do that is by building a collection of material culture. So that includes three-dimensional objects, paper-based objects like photographs and letters and records, as well as oral histories. And besides the collection side of what we do, we also do public programming and community outreach. So in my role, I deal with all those areas. I'm the person who brings in the collections and works with the community to interview people and capture their stories. I produce the public programs. I go out and I speak to organizations. And so I wear a lot of different hats. And the common thread among all those things is I get to work with Italian Americans and document Italian American history.
Now, Melissa, I think you're on the wrong show. This is not Italian Impact. No, I'm just kidding. No, actually, I think that's wonderful. But I'm going to ask you because, you know, the one thing that we've always talked about is, you know, finding that passion, that niche in your life, you know, and there are a lot of people that are very passionate about the Italian culture. I think we've talked about this before, but I don't really remember. But what was the impetus for you that said, I want to pursue this, not just because I enjoy it, but I want to make it a career? Like, what made it so important to you?
Sure. Well, I think this touches then on the business side of your program. Before I even knew that I wanted to do this work with the Italian American community, I knew that I wanted to work in museums. That's a decision that I made when I was doing my undergraduate coursework. And I went to college thinking that I was going to be a photographer. I was a fine arts major and my focus was on photography, and I worked in dark rooms and I did all that sort of thing. And I had a professor who was a curator at a museum. And as a part of that course, we got to go behind the scenes at the facility where she worked. We got to look at collections. And that's when I started to learn about the job of a curator and the way that a curator uses collections to educate. And I just thought that was so cool, this idea that you could use collections and objects to teach people both in the classroom, do that kind of formal education, but also informally by having them in a gallery or being in a public space. So that's when I sort of shifted gears and I went to graduate school for art history. And I started to do internships and volunteer and work part-time in museums. And I really loved that work, but I was previously in art museums, which is a little different than working in a history museum. And when I saw this job posting, I thought it was a great opportunity because it was an interesting marriage between these two sides of who I was. I was a museum professional working in the museum industry, but I was also an Italian American and someone who knew the history of how my family came from Italy to Western Pennsylvania and was very engaged with that narrative and the way that my family continued Italian traditions. And so when I started doing this job at the History Center, it was very exciting to do something that was not only within my field and within my skill set, but it is so meaningful to be able to do work that helps other families and individuals make sure that their stories are not forgotten and to make sure that they are written into this American narrative, because as I'm always telling people, Italian American history is American history.
Amen. And I'm going to ask you something because, you know, you made me think of something. When you look back in the last many years and you see, and look, I always try to say we stay apolitical on this show, but you cannot deny, you know, when they're tearing down statues of historical figures, or you see an emphasis on this culture, you see they want to rewrite culture. What do you think the importance is now then of, say, for example, an Italian American, you know, specific spot in Heinz History Center or other, you know, cultures having those tangible assets, you know, or do you feel like, you know, without that, it gives people kind of a green light to say, well, that really didn't happen like that, or that wasn't important. I mean, how does that play into people that are trying to kind of either rewrite or erase history?
Well, I would say that representation is essential. And one of the things that I like about being here at the History Center is we we do our due diligence to make sure that as many voices, as many stories that there are in our region are represented here within our collections, within our exhibit spaces, and within our programs. Because for young children especially, to come to a place where they're told this is where history lives, and to be able to come into this space and see a reflection of themselves or a reflection of their parents or their grandparents, I think that is essential for community building and for a sense of belonging. And I think, in my role, one of the things that I try to do with any historical narrative is to try to look at all sides of it and to make sure that all of those different voices are represented, even if those voices may conflict with one another, even if those voices may have sort of different interpretations. They all exist. They all have a validity in, our larger narrative as a community. We know Italian Americans are not homogenous. Italian Americans come from all different parts of Italy. They've lived in urban spaces. They've lived in rural spaces. They've worked all kinds of professions. And so my work is to make sure that all of that is represented, because if things change in textbooks, if things change out in our world, if those physical spaces change, we always can come back to the repositories and the resources and still find that information. And that's why I think documentation is really important. I think capturing as much as we can is really important, because we know the world is ever evolving and ever changing, but that doesn't mean that we can erase what happened. So, that is sort of my long-winded way of saying representation does really matter. And we should be able to look for representation in all different kinds of spaces, public spaces, private spaces. And here in the museum, we feel very strongly that what we do in this space is reflect our communities, represent them, and also make space for our communities to have their voices. And that goes back to one of the things you said, which is it's important, I think, for Italian Americans and for other groups, particularly marginalized groups, to be able to have that space, to have their voices included in institutions and in sites that we see as sites of education, sites of what we would call, formal history. It's really important that we allow people the space for their voices to exist there.
Very well said, Melissa. Now, tell us about some of the great items that you have come across and that are on display.
Well, we have a lot all throughout the building. Most people know that we do have a section in our fourth floor Special Collections Gallery, which is located right behind Mr. Rogers, so pretty easy to find. And in that section is where we have a number of items that are tagged as Italian American. And those are really reflective of the community that came around the turn of the century. And within that space, we have really great items related to foodways. We have a wine press, a pizzelle iron, a pizza peel. Those are kind of our espresso machine, of course. Everybody loves that because it's a beautiful piece. So those are things that stand out to a lot of people, because even if you're not Italian American, you probably love Italian American food. We also, within that section, have some nice pieces related to laborers. So we have a miner's helmet that has a piece from it missing because the miner got in an accident and got trapped between the steering wheel of his car and the ceiling of the mine. And there's a dramatic story about how he got into that situation and was rescued. We actually have the oral history of him telling that story. We have a statue of San Rocco, which came from Larmer Avenue, that was used when they would do their annual San Rocco procession. And a lot of people recognize that because they remember when the statue was processed through their community. We have a beautiful banner from the Mutual Beneficial Society of San Donato, which was in Altoona, Pennsylvania. And people might not realize, while we do have a lot of things from the city of Pittsburgh and Allegheny County, we also have items reflective of the counties throughout Western Pennsylvania. Outside of this part of the museum, we also have things that are embedded in our different exhibitions. And something that a lot of people love to go see are items related to Franco's Italian Army. And that's in our Super Steelers exhibit in the Franco Harris Sports Museum. So I don't know if you knew that we recently rebranded the Sports Museum and named it after Franco. Yeah. But the Franco's Italian Army items are awesome because those are the items that come from the fan group that rallied around Franco in his rookie year. And included in that is one of the cornos that was used by the generals in Franco's Italian Army when they would protect Franco, but also put the Maloke on the opposing team. So a really interesting intersection between Italian folk customs and sports.
People forget Franco Harris was Italian, people. That's right. He's one of us. No, Melissa, it's funny. When you say turn of the century, I'm thinking, did they come with flip phones and PS3s? Because,
it should have said turn of the 20th century.
It's funny because we don't realize that. Now it's going to be a time, 50, 60 years, they're going to be talking about us like we're the old timers. They were still using touch screens. Oh, God. Anyways, Melissa, I digress. Look, folks, we're going to be right back after these commercials. Hi, I'm Steve Mancini.
And I am Claudio Reilsono, and we are the hosts of Talking Business and Life.
Join us in celebrating the Italian community on June 28th as the Pittsburgh Pirates take on the Cincinnati Reds. This ticket package includes an exclusive co-branded Pirates Italian-themed jersey and loaded value to use on concessions and merchandise during the game.
And remember, a portion of each ticket purchased through this offer will benefit a local Italian charity.
So hope to see you there June 28th as the Pittsburgh Pirates take on the Cincinnati Reds.
Ciao, Chrissy. Your Italian got so much better. Brava.
Grazie. It's because I learned the best way possible.
How so?
Well, I learned that with apps, grammar books, and even YouTube videos, I could only get so far. I had to immerse myself. I noticed I did best when I was in Italy visiting family. That's where my level really soared.
And wow, did it work?
Thanks. I became much more confident, fast. That's why I created Footsteps Through Time. It's an Italian language experience. You don't just take Italian classes, you immerse yourself in a real Italian village. With lots of fun activities and excursions, it's life-changing.
I see. So, no more boring grammar, impersonal apps, just real conversations, real culture, and delicious food, of course.
Exactly. I'm so excited about this. Learn Italian by actually becoming part of the local community for a week and living it. So if you've been dreaming of Italy and the language, check out Footsteps Through Time in Italy.com. Book now and join the experience.
Andiamo!
Thanks to Greater Pittsburgh Travel. For any of your travel needs, let Tom and the team at Greater Pittsburgh Travel know and they'll take care of you. For more information, call 412-331-2244 or visit their website at www.greaterpittsburghtravel.com. And we want to thank the Calabria Club of Pittsburgh. If you're interested in learning more, you can find their contact information on Facebook at Calabria Club of Pittsburgh. Again, thanks Domenica and the team at the Calabria Club of Pittsburgh for your support.
Hello, everyone. My name is Claudio Reilsono, and I am the author of the book, Lead from the Heart Up, Not the Neck Up, How to Create a Positive Winning Culture on the Field and in the Office. My years as a head baseball coach and a general manager of a pro baseball scouting company, I know that my leadership experiences that I've included in this book will help you become a better leader. You can get the book at ClaudioReilsono.com. Speaking of ClaudioReilsono.com, you can listen to my show, The Claudio Reilsono Show, where I've interviewed such legends as Mario Andretti, Dick Vermeil, Rocky Bleier, and many, many others. And I also have an entrepreneurial program there talking about my entrepreneurial experiences. So hopefully that'll help you and hopefully you will enjoy that. And also Sports Corner, hosted by Ralph Williams, co-host with myself, Jim Frazier, and Luther Dupree Jr. We appear on 92.5 FM, 1250 AM, The Answer, Salem Radio, every Saturday here in Pittsburgh, 2 p.m. to 3 p.m. I hope you enjoy the show. I hope you enjoy all the shows, and I hope you enjoy my book.
We'd also like to thank Chris Gonzalez from the Knights of Columbus. If you have any questions about joining the Knights of Columbus, reach out to Chris Gonzalez at 412-605-9074.
Mother's Day is the most disappointing day for mothers. Don't send Mom a text. Show her some love with a book that will make her laugh out loud. Buy her Come On Down, a little story about my Italian mom's big dream. Writer Fran Tuno tells the underdog story of her Italian mom's need to win big, feed people, and pray her kids marry and give her grandchildren. Plus, Come On Down has delicious recipes. Moms love those. Find Come On Down on Amazon and all large retailers. Learn more at frantunno.com.
Welcome back to Talking Business and Life with Steve Mancini and Claudio Reilsono, and our very, very special guest, the director for the Heinz History Center's Italian-American program, Melissa Marinaro. Melissa, how do you go about getting some of the items that you do get? And do you have a favorite?
Well, there's a lot of different ways. So sometimes people reach out to us. They know that we're a collecting institution, and we have a portal on our website where people are able to send us information about things they wish to donate to the museum. Other times, there are items that I am looking for that are representative of a particular place, a moment, a profession. And so sometimes I will put the word out through our e-newsletter or through our advisory council, which is made up of members of the community that help to support the work of the program. So there's a lot of different ways. Other times I might, have a public program or be giving a talk somewhere, and someone will approach me afterwards and we'll have a conversation, and something that they say will pique my interest. And so then I'll ask them, do you have anything from that time? Did you save this item? Because people don't always realize the things that we are interested in. We're interested in everyday items. To us, those items have cultural and historical value. And if an item has the ability to tell a story, people don't realize sometimes that the things that they might think of as maybe not exciting or not important are some of the things that we get the most excited about.
Now, Melissa, I'm going to ask you a quick question. Well, I'm going to ask you a real quick question on that, because as my role of the honorary Italian consul, I've actually had people reach out to me and say, listen, I was in the attic and I found this box of letters. And in fact, I have a stack of postcards. I think they're from the 40s that somebody actually came by my office. Do you guys digitize those?
We do. And so that's something that I like to do is when things come in, I do like to digitize materials just because then it's easy for me to access the content, because eventually we do transfer those things into our Dettery Library and Archives, and that's the public-facing facility where people can access our paper-based materials. Those digital materials, I will say though, don't live online. We don't really have a setup yet for sharing those materials in bulk, but I will make a little plug here for our digital catalogs that we have. We do have catalogs that allow you to search our collections. So if you went into our catalog for our archives and you put in the tag Italian or Italian American, it would pull up all the catalog records that have anything related to do with those subject terms. Same with our object catalog. We also have a catalog for three-dimensional items. And what's nice about that is a lot of those items are photographed. So if you put in Italian and it pulls up the records, more often than not, you will then see a picture of that object. And that can be very exciting because we only have 10% of our collection on view at any given moment, which means that 90% of our materials are in storage. So this digital catalog for our collections gives us a way to share with the public what some of the things look like that they might not be able to see when they come to the building. And
I'm actually going to give you a plug as well. So when I went down there and did the tour, it was about 3 weeks ago or so, and that archive library is actually, it's really pretty. I mean, I have actually thought about it. If I'm down there just sitting, it's kind of like a library feel, but it's a very, I don't know how to describe it, but it's just a very comfortable environment. Like everything from the lighting to the tables that they've chosen, just the way it's laid out. It's just a very comfortable, very nice place. And where I'm going with that is, so there are a lot of students, for example, that go to like say Pitt, I think Duquesne, even far away like Gettysburg, that actually have Italian studies, in their different schools, or just history departments. And this is an untapped, resource if you're doing any kind of research. So yes, this is a shameless plug for you, Melissa. But what I've learned, though, in the short time that I've actually been getting documents from folks, is that you will always be surprised what someone may have written down, say, 80 years ago, thinking maybe it was a personal thought, maybe it was just a description of the day, and how it just drops you into that moment in time. So even if you're not doing research, I would say if you're listening to this show and you're anywhere near Pittsburgh area, or you're going to come into Pittsburgh, go there during a weekday, for example, go into that archive area and just think about some time frames or maybe something specific if you're curious. See if they've got something. But I am telling you, it was just so, I can't describe it, Melissa. It was so comfortable to be in that room, and I could totally see myself immersing myself in those archives of just all the documentation you all have. It's just very well done the way you guys do that.
Thank you.
That was a shameless plug. You're welcome.
To know.
No, it is.
No, I appreciate it.
I loved that room. I'm serious. I absolutely love your archive room back there.
Well, something for your listeners to know is that the archives is a free resource. So if you're coming to the museum and you are just interested in visiting our 6th floor and doing research in the Dutchery Library and Archives, there is no admission cost. You identify yourself as a researcher at the admissions desk, and they'll give you a special sticker. You'll head upstairs to the 6th floor, and that space is open to the public Wednesday through Saturday from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. We always have folks staffed at our reference desk, and just like Steve said, you can go up to the desk. You'll be able to ask them, do you have materials about this subject or this particular time period? Also through our computers, you have access to newspapers.com, ancestry.com. We're a great place to do genealogical and family history research, as well as research for any kind of school project or whatever else floats your boat.
And I'll throw something, and here's another piggyback off that. So a lot of people keep coming to me about citizenship. Don't come to me anymore about citizenship. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to know. I don't want to help you. I'm kind of kidding, kind of not kidding. But what I will say is this in all seriousness. If you are interested, that is a good resource where you may be able to find some documents from your grandparents, great-grandparents, to give you a little more insight into where exactly did they come from and when exactly did they come here, because that makes a difference on citizenship, depending on mom, dad, 1948, and all that good stuff. When did they acquire their citizenship? And that might not be at the Heinz History Center, but what might be there is more detail about the person's name. You may have not know your exact name of your grandparents or your great-grandparents because, maybe that's 80, 100, 120 years ago. But what you might be able to get is now their exact spelling and the exact name of the town. I cannot tell you how many people have reached out to me, and I will ask them these questions, and they won't know it. And so I know that a lot of other organizations have donated documents to you all. Good example, Adelaide Club. It was in Bloomfield. I believe you guys have all of their records. Is that correct? The historical records?
That is correct.
And
yep.
And that's a big deal because when I was doing my genealogy and trying to find out some information, I never knew that my grandfather was a member of the Adelaide Club way back in the day. So again, these are little things that they're just nice little carrots that you can pick up along the way. Melissa, I'm going to ask you a kind of another question. Is there a plan? I know you sort of touched on this. Is there a plan, though, ultimately long-term to get the archives online?
I'd love to be able to get the archives online. I am hoping that in the future we'll be able to have a microsite, which would have materials both reflective of what's in the archives and in the object collection. Because we don't have that at the moment, the next best thing I can offer to people is my book Highlights from the Italian American Collection, Western Pennsylvania Stories, which has a number of color photographs reproduced of items from the collection. So that's a really nice way to flip through and see what we have, because within that book, there are stories of different communities, churches, people who worked in certain professions, even things that came from Italy. But yes, I do hope that one day we will get to that point. And even though we're not there yet, I can tell you I do a lot of digitizing, and I just continue to amass as many digital facsimiles as I can for when the time comes when we can build a resource like that.
Melissa, is there an item that is on your wish list that you would like to get to put on display?
Oh, that's a tough one because I feel like it changes. I can tell you a few items that have been on my wish list for a while. Maybe some people in the community may have these. One item that I've come across, which is really unique, it's related to that fascist period of Italy. I don't know if you know this story about when Mussolini asked the community to send gold in because he was trying to raise money in the 1930s.
Yes.
And so what happened was women would send in their wedding bands and their jewelry, and then they would be sent back a ring. And in the ring in Italian on the inside, embossed in the ring, it would say, "For the fatherland." And I have talked to some people in the community who had parents and grandparents who did participate in that campaign and had one of those rings. You know, this is a very difficult moment in Italian history, but it is a moment in which a lot of people made the decision to emigrate, particularly those who had family in the United States when they saw what was going on in Italy and they saw that Europe was moving towards a war. They were looking to try to get out. And so while it is a difficult time period, that is one of those items that I think is kind of very evocative and tells an interesting story and also touches on the very complicated relationship that Italian Americans had with Italy in the 1930s. You know, something that there's a lot of really interesting scholarship around. So that's one item. Another item is, and we do have a couple put sale irons, so I'm not looking necessarily for more put sale irons, but I am looking for one that does have initials in it. And so this was a gift that was given, sometimes it was given as a wedding gift, where typically the woman who would have been making pastelles would be given a custom iron that would have her initials in it so that when she made her cookies, it would appear in the cookie. So that's something that I have been looking for because those are very unique, special items. And then I would say in general, you know, I'm always looking for more oral histories, and particularly oral histories of people who come from communities that aren't as well represented in our collection. We obviously have a lot from Bloomfield, from the Lower Hill District, from Larimer Avenue. But I've been looking for people who come from communities, and I'll give you a great example. I just interviewed a gentleman about a month ago, and he was from Hayes. And Hayes was a very heavy Italian neighborhood. And most of the people that lived in Hayes worked at the steel plant. But because of urban revitalization, the community was mostly wiped out. And people from Hayes then moved to West Mifflin. They moved farther down into the South Hills. But I wasn't as familiar with the Italian American community of Hayes. And the gentleman that I interviewed, Joseph Falk, was able to give me so much amazing information about the people that lived in the neighborhood, the towns in Italy they came from, the small businesses that were there. He was also a World War II veteran in the Pacific campaign and had some really remarkable stories related to his military service. So I'm always looking for people who can tell us things that we don't have documented. And if anyone's looking for more examples, they are welcome to contact me at the History Center if they think that they have something that we would be interested in knowing more about.
I was there a few years ago when you had the Bruno Sammartino documentary, which was a fantastic program and a great event at your place. Now, you have two upcoming programs. Talk about those, please.
Yeah, so the first program is a program that we have helped to sponsor. So I can't take any credit for producing this, but we did help to bring this program to the United States. It's called August Wilson's Jitney in Italian. And maybe you've heard about this. This has been rumbling for a few years now. But this is a collaboration with an Italian filmmaker and director named Renzo Carbonara. And Renzo came here to the University of Pittsburgh when they hosted the Italian Film Festival, in part because he's a member of Steelers Nation and really wanted to visit Pittsburgh. And while he was here, he fell in love with August Wilson. He wasn't familiar with his work. And so he decided what he wanted to do was to translate one of Wilson's plays into Italian. And the play is performed by an entirely Afro-Italian cast because he was interested in bringing Black American culture to Europe. He actually got a grant from the State Department to do so. And so now that he has staged this performance in Italy, the troupe is coming to the United States, and Pittsburgh is going to be one of the cities that they perform in. This will be from May 8th to May 10th at the Carter Woodson Redwood Theater. And this will be the first time that Wilson's work has been performed in Italian in the United States. And it will be, I think, really interesting because it's going to be, there's going to be English subtitles for those who don't speak Italian. But I think it's going to be a great reflection of Pittsburgh culture, a play written by a Pittsburgher, taking place in the Lower Hill District in the 1970s. And so I've seen some clips of this, and I think Renzo has a really incredible vision. And I think this is going to be a unique experience to engage in a theatrical performance, but one that is celebrating the Italian language.
Melissa, it is always great to have you on. You give us a ton of great information. I've been to the Heinz History Center numerous times, and it's almost like watching The Godfather. I don't remember that part. I don't remember that line. Sometimes I'll go there and I'll say, I didn't know they had that. I mean, maybe it's just a new thing that was put up, a new item, but I always enjoy going there. And we certainly appreciate you keeping our heritage alive, well, and moving forward. And I repeat, I appreciate you having my stuff up there. It is an honor. Trust me when I tell you. Every time I go by the building, I think of it and I think of you. But we will definitely have you on again. We will be connecting with you soon. And again, we appreciate you very, very much. We all do. And thank you for your hard work and passion for the program.
Thank you. Well, I'll just make one plug here for our e-newsletter. If people are interested in staying up to date with our programming and the different things we have going on with the Italian American program, visit the Heinz History Center's website, go to the Italian American program page, and you will find a link to subscribe to our Bolletino.
Awesome. Hey, Melissa, again, I want to thank you as well. I'm actually going to be reaching out to you sooner rather than later. Again, I've got a stack of these old postcards that somebody came by my office. I would love to bring them over there, have you guys digitize them so we can share them. And then I don't know if the person wants them back or not. Well, if you're listening and you want them back, you got to let me know. Otherwise, they might be sitting at the Heinz History Center. Otherwise, Melissa, again, we're going to thank you for the 1,000th time. And we're going to put a link down there in the description so you can go out and, reach out directly to Melissa. But as always, we'd like to thank everyone that tunes in here every week, week after week, as we try and bring in good guests. And Claudio, I never end the show without letting you end the show.
As always, Steve, I appreciate you, appreciate the audience for tuning in and your great notes and emails. And as always, thank you, Mom and Pop.
Thank you for listening to Talking Business and Life with Claudio Reilsono and Steve Mancini. Tune in next week for more impactful business and life experiences with Claudio and Steve.